There we go. We're recording okay, welcome everybody. We're going to just give a couple seconds for people to come in from the waiting room, the Zoom waiting room, into the arena, the Zoom arena where this conversation is going to take place. Oh yes, it's going to be incredible. I'm looking forward to it. Um, give just a couple more seconds. Yes, Courtney, they're flowing in. They are flowing in from the waiting room. Look at them. Look at all the
Welcome.
participants.
Well,
Look at those participants. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. All right. Oh, Oregon is in there. Oregon, not Oregon. Oregon's in the house. Hello, Heather from Oregon.
hi,
Hello, Heather. Um,
Howdy,
there we go. There we go. So,
California. Hey,
California,
y'all.
Golden State, Golden State. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is, wherever you are. Welcome to the March 2026 Let's Talk. This is a companion webinar which accompanies our monthly international journal for direct support professionals. And this is an endeavor that has been going on for over a decade. Every month, we bring you information that's practical, that's pertinent, that's relevant, and that's all about how direct support professionals can improve the work that they do with the people that they support. My name is John Raffaele. I'm the Director of Educational Services with the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. And I am so thrilled and pleased to be here today to talk about something that is an ongoing daily issue. And I'm going to say issue, Courtney. I'm going to say issue
I agree.
because you know what I'm saying? Okay, there we go. We're going to start
Yeah,
because it's about language, but it's even more than language. It's about respect.
yeah.
Um, we'll get to that in just a second. Let me just give some housekeeping here for those of you that are looking to have interpretation. We have an interpretation window. You can the interpretation feature. We have ASL interpreters, Emma and Michael, which are going to interpret for us today. We also have closed captioning that is available as well. But what we're going to do for the course of this about an hour, we're going to have a conversation, and the conversation is all about an article that the great Courtney Kelly Chapman, who you're gonna meet in just a second, wrote for us for this March 2026 International Journal. And the official title of what Courtney wrote and what she penned, "The Power of Words: Why Language Matters in Supporting People with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities." And as we said, it's an issue because we hear it and we see it in the written word, in the spoken word, when it
Yeah.
comes to how, and I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it, but how we use sometimes institutional, downright disrespectful language in the work that we do.
Yeah.
We want to look at that. We want to look at that and look at that critically. But before we get to that, the International Journal's been around a long time. As I said, we're going on 13, 14 years of publication. Every month, we do an international journal. We do an accompanying webinar like we're doing today. Many of you are probably on it that have heard this spiel. But for those of you that are new to us, welcome. And this is something we do every month. It's a partnership between the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals and Vida Community Living Services in Toronto, Canada. It is truly an international partnership. And if you want to know more about the International Journal, if you want previous issues, we have an archive of over a decade of these uh, articles, which are to this day still very pertinent for direct support professionals. Give me an email and I'll hook you up. jraphael@nadsp.org. This is a live broadcast. If you're interested in sharing something in the chat, please do. We can't guarantee we're going to be able to answer any questions or address every comment, but we'll take a look once in a while and see what we got. But we welcome you to certainly share your feelings or your thoughts. This will be a spicy topic. I'm going to give you that kind of warning. We're not going to mince words. A little bit of here we go. A little bit of a foreshadowing there, because what we're going to talk about are words. Let's get to it. What do you see there? For those of you that can see, that are able to visually see the screen, and I'll ask Courtney, what do you see there? Courtney, you're going to meet her in just a second, but what do you see there when you look at that screen?
I thought it was pretty cool. I see words, but I also see swords, which is like so spot on because it could be either way. Yeah. So I see two things.
You see two things
Lots of
because
words, lots of swords.
that's it. That's it. And we're hoping that our words never become swords.
Yep.
We're hoping our words never become, and that's what we're going to talk about. And let's get to it with this incredible conversation. Courtney, who are you? I know who you are. Who are you?
All right, guys. So I'm Courtney Kelly Chapman. I am the Vice President of Training and Special Projects for the Council on Quality and Leadership, also known as CQL. I've been in the field a long time. As you guys can tell, I started when I was a baby. Just kidding, just kidding. And just love the work that I do. Currently, I help to create trainings, presentations, do some accreditation work, do personal outcome measures interviews. So just a little bit of everything. Prior to working for CQL, I worked was the Director of Operations for Liberty Healthcare. And then prior to that, I was the Assistant Commissioner of Accreditation and Person-Centered Practice at the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. So I've been around for a long, long, long time. Started my career as a DSP in undergrad years and years and years ago, and have lots of funny stories that I share when I'm training about that experience. So yeah, and I know you guys hear this Southern twang in my voice. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, then moved to Nashville. But just recently, 3 years ago, got married and moved to the Chicagoland area. And I do miss my Southern folks. So that's just a little bit about me. Excited to be here. CQL, we're great partners with NADSP, and I'm also a board member for NADSP. So I stay pretty busy, but it's great work. It's good work. So when you're doing something you love, it doesn't really feel like work at all. So that's a little bit about me.
Beautiful. And Courtney, thank you for all that service you've just described, and certainly thank you for being on our board. We appreciate your direction and your leadership very much. So let's get right to it. And I think one thing that prompted this article, and certainly this webinar, and something that we have certainly talked about at the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals since our inception, is our mission, which is elevating the work of direct support professionals. And I say the word professionals with kind of a stressor on that, because we believe, and I know you believe this, Courtney, that direct support professionals are just that. They're professional. Professionals have a language. They have a vocabulary. They have what we call a lexicon. Ooh, that's a 50-cent word, a lexicon. And that's one thing, like doctors. You go to a doctor and you hear a doctor. You go to a dentist, you hear a dentist. You go to I don't know. You go to the auto mechanic, and you hear things that may or may not be familiar to you,
Yep.
but they're part of professional language, right? So that's one thing. But what we're talking about here is the language that direct support professionals use when speaking not only about their work, but also about and with the people they work with. So that said, why does language matter more than we might think, just generally? Courtney?
I think that language is so important, right? And think about just that whole environment of being a direct support professional. So let's talk about that first, and then I'll get to the point. But you're normally working in someone's home. You're going in and providing that personal care, cooking, cleaning, bathing, all of those intimate personal things that we do, right? And so certainly that already, especially if you're new and you're learning the person, there's already a level of uncomfortableness there, right? Because this is somebody bathing you and whatever. So
Yep.
you're trying to build those relationships. And so language is so important on so many levels, but certainly you just never know what type of day a person's having. Something as simple as, oh, you look really nice today. Or, just those little, I call them power words, those little words of encouragement that we do for each other makes all the difference in the world. And I talk about the importance of language because it matters so much. You can say something in a negative tone, or use negative language, and it impacts that person's whole day. Or you could flip that and say, you know what, this may be the situation we're dealing with. It may not be a great day, but how do we spin this and make it into a better day? How do we? And so words have that much power. I know that seems a little wonky, but you guys know this as well as I do. Words carry power. And so when you're communicating with people, it's important to think about what is the end result that you're trying to achieve, and how your words can help you connect to that end result.
Yeah.
So words are important.
And that's on that note, think about, once again, let's get to our field here. And largely, I think most of our work and the work that we discuss it surrounds the work of direct support professionals who work with people with intellectual developmental disabilities. Now, here's the thing. We are still struggling in 2026
for sure
with the fact that people not that long ago were dehumanized. The people that we work with, and they were institutionalized, and they lived in institutions. And those of you that are probably honest, and I know you know this, Courtney, that the remnants of the language we used in those institutions, idiot, imbecile, moron, we use those like they're candy. Those were diagnostic categories at one point, right?
I'll tell you, I had a person supporter tell me one day, we were in a focus group, and so this is how our words impact people, guys. We were in a focus group, John, and I heard a person supporter say, well, I'm a level 3. So I'm not going to be able to do blah, 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 because I'm only a level 3. And my neck swung around. I said, huh?
Yep.
And she was like, yeah, I'm a level 3. And I thought to myself, my goodness, what are we doing to people? Like, I have health diagnoses, I take meds for certain things. I don't walk around and say, I'm this. That's not how I introduce myself. It doesn't even come up in the conversation. So I feel like that tells us a lot for somebody to say in a conversation, and very casual. I mean, it was just like, I'm a level 3. So I can do this and I can do that. And that's it, That's been taught.
Yep. Similar story. I worked with folks that came out of Willowbrook and came out of Letchworth Village. These are New York State institutions. Those of you that aren't familiar, these are some of the largest institutions in the world. And I remember, I'll never forget this similar thing, Courtney. And I was taken aback because this one man started, yelling at this other gentleman that was receiving supports in a group home. You low grade, this and that, and this and that, and F this and this, and you low grade. And I didn't understand it. This is 25 years ago. I didn't, what low grade? What the hell is that? Same thing, level 3, low grade, high grade. These were where people were kind of in the status level of the institution. And if you were low grade, it meant you were less than. So this is the question on the screen. Language does matter, doesn't it?
It does.
And let me ask you, Courtney, why is it that direct support professionals should be almost extra aware of their language usage? Do you understand? Why should DSPs even worry about it?
I think because of the weight that it carries, right? And even as I'm sitting here thinking and processing your question, I go back to something that popped in my head just now, and I'll share it. I was meeting with a group of DSPs a few years ago, as a focus group, and we were talking about the importance of sharing information as you learn it, because you're the DSP, you're on the front lines, you're there with the person. If anybody knows anything, it's the DSP. Like that's the go-to person, right?
Yep.
But the DSP made a statement and said, well, I'm just a DSP, so I don't say nothing because it doesn't matter. And I looked at her and I said, no, it does. I said, you're the person with all the information. I had a supervisor that used to always say, the power stick is on the table. I said, you're the holder of the power stick. Like you're talking about yourself as if you don't matter. And you're like, oh, I'm just a DSP. What I say doesn't mean anything. And it's kind of sad, right? But certainly, your words impact the person having a good day. What if someone is just having a bad day and things are not going well and they're showing it in their actions and in the sounds that they make or the words they're using? And let's say you're the DSP and you walk in and you're like, yeah, it's a horrible day. Yeah, you're having behaviors. What's going to happen is that's just going to continue to escalate because you're not doing anything to reverse it, right? But let's say you walked in, you're like, you know what? Yeah, I see, we're not having such a good day, but what would make it better? Would you like to do blah, blah, blah? What about if we go do this and then we go get ice cream? I actually supported someone that when they had a bad day, if you said, hey, at the end of this, we got to do hard things sometimes, but at the end of this, their favorite place was Baskin Robbins, by the way. We can go to Baskin Robbins. And it immediately turned it around. And that's what it was like, oh, we're going to Baskin Robbins at the end of the day. So it's the tone, it's the words that you use. Are you being positive or are you adding to the negativity? It's all of those things, but it also impacts the DSPs as well. Because if the DSPs are basically led by, leaders that, oh, you're just a DSP, your input doesn't matter, or, oh, that's just a DSP shop. If that's how it's viewed, it goes across the board.
Absolutely.
So really have to think about the audience. What are you trying to come? All of those things connect.
Yeah. And think about now, just what you just said, just a DSP. That's frankly, it's a horrible thing to say.
It is.
No, you're not just a DSP, but that's where their mindset is.
Yep.
And we got to combat that. No. You are a DSP, and in fact, like all the things you just said, their input is incredibly critical.
They have all the answers. I mean, literally, they have the information. There's so much untapped information in a DSP's head, and I think people just really don't stop and think about it that way.
Yep. And back to what I said initially here, that our mission in our organization, and I know largely in your organization too, is to elevate not only the status of people with disabilities, but the status of direct support professionals. Now, look, we're not wanting direct support professionals to walk around like robots with this very specific vocabulary, but professionals have jargon. They have, it has to be respectful, but they have words that are associated with what they do. And I think you can slip into what we also talked about just a couple seconds ago, this institutional kind of thing with particularly people with disabilities. Toileting.
Yep.
Biting. He's a biter. She's a runner.
Yeah.
He's having a behavior. Those are institutional ways to and they're ultimately, and I will say this, as we get spicy, no, DSPs, if you're listening to this and you use those kind of words, we want you to change that up. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
I do go to the toilet, but I don't think of myself, I'm toileting myself.
Right.
I'm going to the bathroom. You know what I'm saying?
You know what drives me crazy, John? And I hear it all of the time. And it just drives me insane. I don't know why I just jump on this. But you hear people say, we're going in the community. When you and I go out and go to the grocery store or go pay bills or whatever it is we're doing, we do not use the words, we're going in the community. We never say that. I've never heard any of my friends say, oh, but I can promise you, if I walk into a residential home right now and talk about what you're doing or what your plans, oh, we're going to go into the community tomorrow.
So,
okay.
So you're right. You're 100% right, Courtney. And here's the rub. Now, here's where I'm going to come in with love from the DSPs. Oh my goodness. That's part of our system because I remember doing this as a DSP. We had to do certain numbers of community outings. That's what they were called. We had to document them as community endeavors, community outings. And if we didn't do that, if the folks didn't go to the community, so it's almost ingrained in the DSPs, right? That we got to do the community.
We're going on an outing. Yep.
All
Y'all, I
institutional.
promise. Yes,
All institutional.
it is.
So look, we could talk about this. Let's get to the next question here. Next point. So we're all person-centered, we hope.
Yeah.
We hope. That's what we've been striving for years as a system, to be person-centered. We could have a whole series of webinars on person-centered thinking, person-centered language, but person-centered language starts with person-centered thinking. What does that mean? Can you expand on that, please?
Yeah. So simply to me, person-centered thinking is about putting the person, exactly what it says, putting the person in the center. And so how do you do that? You say, well, you're like putting the person in the center. Okay, but what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, what that looks like is having conversations to understand what makes that person tick, what matters to that person, what's important to that person, what are the things that they love and enjoy doing, what are their hobbies, who are their favorite people to be around. So it's really understanding, no different from you and I, what matters to you, and then connecting that. So taking the services that are provided and connecting people with that, right? So let's say you have someone, and I actually helped support someone years ago who wanted to go to college. And people would say, oh, but she can't. Well, she did. She actually did, because she was with a DSP who believed in what it was that she wanted to do. And they just started going to the universities in that city and talking to people saying she wants to do this. And they knocked on doors and doors were closed, but eventually a door opened and she got her associate's degree. So it's really understanding. And I always say, I never want to be a dream killer. You know, sometimes the dream may seem very lofty and I have no idea how we're going to get there. No clue, none whatsoever. But I'm honest. I'll say, you know what? I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to figure it out. Let's start breaking it down in many steps. So it's just being honest with people, but it's also listening and understanding and making sure that what you hear, you understand it correctly to be what you think it is. If not, clarify. So that's in a nutshell what person-centered thinking is really understanding that person, what truly matters to that person. And sometimes you have to clarify, and that's perfectly fine. Or sometimes it'll change. That's fine. We're humans. We're constantly evolving. So we change. What we like this year may completely change next year. And guess what? It's absolutely okay. But you have to know in order to support the person correctly. So that requires conversation.
Yeah. And this is something I think we see. We certainly see it with society and the public not understanding necessarily, the world of intellectual and developmental disability and that particular part of the diversity of our beautiful human race. There's a lack of presumption of competence. And I think back to your point about having that conversation with somebody, I don't care how profoundly disabled somebody is intellectually, they still deserve the respect of some kind of dialogue, whatever that might be.
Absolutely. And they're still communicating.
Yeah.
We may not know exactly what it is or what it looks like. We may have to figure it out. And that may, and let me say for people, because I get this all the time in training. They'll say, well, for people, this is easy for people who use words to communicate. But for people who don't use words to communicate, we don't know. No, you will know. You can know. It's going to take a little bit more work. It's going to take being creative. It's going to take talking to other people, but they're communicating. And so what you've got to do is figure it out. What does it mean? So it requires extra steps. It requires, let's see if this is the right response. If this is what we think it is, and it may be yes or no, but you don't know until you try. And I always say to people too, you know what? I may get this wrong. Help me help you. Help me. Tell me if I'm getting it wrong. So people will walk with you and help you step by step if you're respectful, if you truly listen to understand, listen to learn, and have the desire to figure it out. You can't just throw your hands up and say, well, they don't use words, so we don't know what it is. No, that's not what we're doing. No.
That's not what we do. Not what we do. It's funny, not funny, that there's a movement afoot, which is wonderful. And there's an organization, I'll give a nasty plug. I love giving nasty, unsolicited plugs. I'm going to give a plug now. Communication First is the name of the organization. And they're a fantastic organization. And what they're all about is just that there's not one human being on this planet that does not communicate. Everybody communicates, especially people that don't speak. We're seeing more and more of this. We had a keynote presenter who is a colleague and a friend of mine. Her name's Jordan Zimmerman. Jordan doesn't use words to speak. Jordan communicates very well, however, through the use of adaptive communication devices. And the bottom line, what you just said, Courtney, we got to take the time. And this is where the professional comes in. We have to take the time as direct support professionals.
We do.
To figure out that communication path, whatever that is.
Exactly right. And it's okay to say, I think you're feeling this, or I think you this, but you still go to that person to clarify if that's right. Now, perfect example, we have a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old. Sometimes that 10-year-old will come in from school. Now, the 10-year-old is very talkative, you guys. He will talk your head off. He's a social butterfly. But sometimes he'll come in from school, he'll throw that backpack on the floor and head up the stairs, won't say a word. Then you automatically know, over trial and error, we had to learn this, that he's had a bad day at school. He didn't use not one word, but we knew it. And so think about your significant others, your children, your parents. We all use non-spoken language, so you just have to know the person and understand. So if I didn't know, I would say to his dad, you think he's had a bad day? He's like, yep, he had a bad day. Give him a few minutes to settle down. Give him like 20 minutes and he'll be back down here talking his head off. So it's understanding and talking to those who know the person best. If you can't figure it out, go to those who know the person best, because they probably know. They spent enough time around them to know what it means. We all do.
Yep. Oh, without a doubt. Got a question. Just this came to my mind right now. There's been this has gone back and forth for years. Person first language, as associated with the person-centered thinking and person-centered language, but person first language. It's a little controversial. And let's take autism for example. I know a lot of people who have autism that don't want to be referred to as so-and-so with autism. They want to be, no, I'm so-and-so and I'm autistic. How do we navigate that? Because it's a tough one, because there are some people that would prefer like the person first language, but there are some people that are absolutely, no, I'm autistic, and don't have any shame in their disability, as nobody should.
Right.
But the bottom line, what do we do with because we're talking about our system and the professional environments that we're working in. And some people, I used to teach people, direct support professionals, use person first language. That's John with cerebral palsy.
Yeah.
What do we do with this, Courtney? What do we do? What did the DSPs do with this?
The person. You go to the person and you say, what do you prefer?
There you go.
How do you want to be addressed? And whatever they tell you, that's what it is. It's that simple. I know that sounds so simplistic, but it really is. It's, what do you prefer? If you don't know, that's the first thing that I do. If I'm working with someone or we're training together or whatever, I said, tell me, how do you like to be addressed? You just call me Courtney. Some of my family call me Coco. I don't care to be called Coco. It doesn't bother me at all. Just have a conversation. What do you prefer? And then follow what they tell you.
Yeah. And I tell you, if you get nothing else out of this webinar, that's, I think, a sage piece of advice right there. One more thing about this notion of person-centered language. And it deals with, and you wrote this in your article a little bit, I just wanted to address it, tone. And I've seen this a million times, and I experience this sometimes in like the diner. The
Yeah.
diner. You go to the diner, and you know the serving staff, you know, the service staff. Hi, hon, how you doing, baby? How you doing, baby? Oh, I mean, sometimes I'm a 60-year-old guy, so sometimes that feels good that somebody's talking to me like that in a flirtatious way. Hon,
Yeah, that's a big one,
sweetie,
hun, especially in the South. They'll
in the
hun you
South.
to death.
Yep, yep. What I've heard it, you've heard it. Direct support professionals referring to the people they support in that
Yeah.
tone, using those endearing terms, nicknames.
Yeah.
Any suggestions there? Once again, we're not we're not here to be the tone police,
Right. Right.
but what do we do?
I think it's the same thing. I think it connects back to what is important to the person. I think you got to have a conversation and understand how that person likes to be addressed. Now, I have been around DSPs, and let me say this, if there's any DSPs on here, it's not meant in a malicious way. Understand
No.
that. But I've heard DSPs say,
Yep.
my people, them my people,
My
or
people.
those are my people, and you can't come over here and get my girl.
Yeah.
And but when I went and spent time and was able to hang out with the crew, they had nicknames for each other. The people supported had nicknames for the DSP. Like they are, it was a family type environment. So I think it depends on the situation. I think you have to understand the dynamic of that particular group.
Yes.
I do
Yes.
think there needs to be education across the board because at the end of the day, being person centered, going back to what matters to that person, how that person likes to be addressed. Some people love it. I've worked with people supported that's all they wanted to do all day was laugh and cut up and joke and play with their DSPs, and it made for the best day. And I feel like if that's what you want and that's what you're happy with, and it makes you have a good day, everybody understands. And it was respectful, but it was their own little internal language. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I just say go to what the person, just have conversation. What do you prefer? Is this okay? I usually use terms of endearment when I'm talking to people. Sweetie, honey, are you okay with that? If you don't like that, let me know. You know, just those type of conversations. And then if that's what you guys are doing and that works for everybody and everybody is respectful and understand that, then that's what it is.
Yep. Yep.
Let
And
the person be the one that leads that. That is their call to make, not yours as a DSP.
yep. Yep.
And you
Beautiful.
do get close to the people that you're supporting, right? You really do. I worked
Yep.
with the same group of ladies for 2.5, almost 3 years, and here I go. They were my people. You know, I was
Yep.
very protective of them. When I wasn't around them on the holidays, I would call and check on them. It we were close.
Yep.
So I get it. But at the
Yep.
same time, you have to remember the respect piece and just having conversation. No different from yourself. You don't want someone to just come up and assume that you want to be called baby,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you just have to have those conversations.
Yeah. I think that's once again probably some of the best advice. And we I think the other piece of this is that, you know, direct support professionals, they're working in they're not working in a bubble, they're working on the stage, you know, and the people are listening to them. And whether that's a family member, a state surveyor, a supervisor,
Exactly.
um
Exactly.
when we
And
talk.
the work is the other part of the DSP world, John, and I don't know if people talk about this a lot, but being a DSP is wearing many, many, many hats. And you have to be very good at switching out the hats. And that's a skill because a person may need you to comfort them in one moment. The next moment, you may be giving meds. The next moment, you may be dealing with an emergency crisis. Do you realize the skill set and the level of adaptiveness that you have to wear about 7, 8, 9, 10 different hats in the course of an 8-hour shift,
Yep.
dealing with
And
different personalities? It's intense.
well, I'll tell you, right, it's unlike any other profession.
It is.
There's no other. I'll say this until I'm dead. There's no other profession on this planet that that the role of that professional is so varied.
It's varied.
chef,
leader,
chauffeur, referee,
nurse,
coach,
cook,
nurse.
clean.
It goes on.
And it's all in a shift, you
Yeah.
guys. Like, you're literally switching hats all
Yeah.
day long. I mean, seriously.
And how's language associated with that? I mean, there's certain things you're going to probably be using, certain language you're going to be using in a certain role, like when
Mm-hmm.
you're refereeing a fight, you're in that residential
Gotta know what to
situation.
say.
You got to know what to say. You
Get
might have
folks'
to.
attention.
Yes, you're not going to be. You might have to use a nickname that you wouldn't
Yeah,
normally use to
yeah.
get somebody off the ledge. Whatever. I mean, but here's the thing. Here's the other thing, and this is where I know this, and I know this, that good DSPs, they know their people. And I
Oh,
say that their
absolutely.
people. There we go.
See, there we go. Language, guys.
There's the language. They
But that's
know.
true.
They know the
That is
people.
absolutely true. And let me say this. In my experience, and I've been in the field a long time, guys, I've seen way more good DSPs than I have not so great DSPs. The other thing I've seen in experience is the not so great DSPs usually roll out of the system. They don't stick around long. The good ones, they're here to the end. They do their job, they take pride in their job, they really care about the people that they support. I actually worked with a DSP, and she had a heart attack and ended up going to the hospital. And I want you guys to know that while she was laying up in that hospital bed, she was worried about the folks that she was responsible for. And they were worried about her. And nobody really rested until they got those folks up there to see her. So those relationships are important and they matter, because you got to think, especially for a lot of the folks that we support in our system, they came out of institutions. Now, of course, we're phasing in now the newer generation of folks. And so it's a little bit different in how we deliver services and how that looks. Absolutely. But for the folks that came out of institutions, you got to think the DSPs who were consistent and who were there, that became family to them, because those were people that they could depend on. They knew day after day that person was going to show up, and that probably had never happened before, right? So you could see how those bonds are created, and they matter, guys. Like, they're so important. And so I think about all of that. That's why I'm so happy to be a part of the board for NADSP and the work that I do at CQL, because DSPs are the backbone of our system. And so there's so much more that we need to do. And of course, that work is happening in the background, but they're the backbone. And so we just need to do more. There's certainly a lot of work yet to be done.
And I mean, we've kind of discussed this, but let's just hit it a little bit more directly. What's the difference between talking about somebody or talking with somebody? It sounds obvious, but once again, we're in this. I can't tell you how many individualized support plan meetings have you been in where people are talking around that person that's sitting right there. Oh,
Imagine
man.
being at a table and they're talking about you, John, and they're like, "Oh, John's difficult. I tell you, he won't let you get a word in edgewise. He don't like to wash his clothes. And you're just sitting there. Can you imagine how that would make you feel? And you got all these people who are supposed to have higher education than you. You know, they're clinicians and they have umpteen degrees and all of these things. So certainly you're not going to say anything because, I mean, you know, they know. But no, you're the expert on you. So what if you don't want to wash your clothes? Okay, maybe you can take them to the laundry. Maybe you can take them to, who knows? It doesn't matter. If that's not important to you, it's just not important to you. And guess what? It's okay. So that's kind of that talking about people, like you're just not even present, like you don't matter, versus saying, okay, John, you know what? You hate washing your clothes. What's some things we can do to change that? You know? So, and pulling you into that conversation and really listening to what you're saying. That's the difference. And that's how you empower people too, John. Because if you have someone at a circle of support meeting or an ISP meeting, a planning meeting, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, no, everybody be quiet. John, tell us what we need to do. How do we, and you like, what? They're talking to me? Well, let me tell you, because you know you better than anybody, right? And so once you're empowered, they're going to get all the information that they need.
That's it, man.
I didn't sound simple because it kind of is, you know. It's just all in how we approach it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then you have to think about, is that person, do they not like communicating in big groups? Then maybe you could do some work beforehand, maybe do something with pictures if they don't use words to communicate. You can get creative with these things, but you
mhm.
ultimately have to make sure that person is in the center of it all, that that person guides and directs what
Yeah.
happens in their life.
I mean, it goes to this piece, person-centered thinking, person-centered practice. And when we talk about that, that's all about this.
That's it.
Um, you know, we our code of ethics, which is newly revised,
Yeah.
another shameless plug here.
It's
Uh,
really good. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's
it's gotta
really
be
good.
cool. It's gotta be cool.
It is.
We're releasing it later this year. But we talk a lot about advocacy within this code. And one of the main pieces of advocacy, a lot of DSPs, I'll hear them say, this is language here, I advocate for the people. Well, I get that. And no shame, no harm, no foul. But no, you're best advocating with people.
That's exactly
Uh,
right.
and that's the trick, and that comes down to all the things we've been talking about.
Yep.
Um, and it I think it does boil down. A lot of this boils down to a lot of simple things, and it's about our partnership with
Yeah.
and our partnership with people we're supporting. And here's the thing: you said it, you've been saying it. Direct support, at its very core, rests on having a relationship.
It is. It's all
And
about relationships.
but it's such an unusual relationship when it comes to a profession. A professional relationship with your doctor is one thing. A professional relationship with your dentist is one thing. A professional relationship with your therapist is one thing. DSP work, it's unbelievably complex because
It is.
here we go. We could have a whole excuse me webinar on this friendship. Are we allowed to be friends with the people we support? Oh, don't let's not even go down that road.
Oh,
Oh my God, because it is a relationship. And there we go.
yeah. And I'm glad you said that about the friendship piece because when I do personal outcome measures interviews, and we collect all of that data for CQL. We love to collect data at CQL if you guys didn't know. But when I conduct personal outcome measures interviews, which are one-to-one interviews with the person receiving services, I'll talk to them about friendship. And I would say, guys, probably, and I think I'm being generous, I would say it's probably more, but I would say 85% of the time, the person supported will tell me when I say, do you have friends? They'll say, my staff. And I'm like, okay, yeah, your staff can be your friend. Yeah, yeah. But that staff is paid to be there. So if that paid relationship ends, are they still there? So that lets you know really if there's a friendship. But what that's telling me is that's the person that they're with every day. That's the person that they've grown to trust. That's the person that they depend on. Therefore, that becomes their friend, which is perfectly fine. But when we think about friendship for ourselves, we look at it differently. Like our friends are not paid to be in our lives; they choose to be, right? So it's type of a volunteer type of thing. This is what you choose to be as a friend with me. So really educating people about that and talking about that. But most people that we support, that's what they say is their DSP is their friend. So lots of work to be done there as well, and teaching
Oh,
people how to build and maintain friendships.
absolutely. And here's the thing, Courtney. Um, I speak a certain way with my friends. I cuss. I'll be the
Me
first to
too.
admit
I got a
I
potty
cuss.
mouth.
I have a potty mouth.
I got a potty
Um,
mouth.
I admit that. I admit it. I admit it. But the thing is, you know what? In my professional role as a direct support professional, in that friendly kind of space, in fact, I could wind up getting some trouble. Like I could get disciplinary action if I'm cussing with the people I'm supporting.
Yeah,
And it's not a good look. But it's also one of those things. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Because it's such a unique, close relate. You work with somebody 10 years, they might be cussing up a storm. I think we've all worked with people that cuss. Um, it doesn't mean we then in kind cuss with them.
right,
Probably
right,
not. Probably not. It's probably
right,
not the best thing, right? So
right.
You said something in the article. I'll paraphrase it, that this is a journey. There's
It
not a
is.
destination here
Yeah.
to like,
There's
perfect,
no end.
but we're always refining our language. And on
Yeah.
that note, let's just do this. Some suggestions that you have for helping direct support professionals and helping ourselves improve our cognizance of our respectful language. What do we do to make sure that we're doing the right thing?
Always include the person. Um, always, always. Don't talk over people. Don't speak for people. Always include the person. I was working with someone who it takes them a little bit of time to say what they need to say. There's some delay in the communication, in the speech pattern. And it's just about being patient. Don't start fast talking over them. That's rude, right? So think
Yeah.
about it. I know this sounds kind of cheesy, but my mom used to say, treat people how you would want to be treated. She would always tell me that, think about how you treat people, Courtney. Think about how you talk to people.
Yeah.
You want somebody to do it to you. And if you turn around and put whatever it is back to yourself and somebody doing that to you, how does it make you feel? And she was absolutely right. You have to put the person at the center. You have to understand what respect means to that person. And I know we have some webinars and some information on the CQL website about that. If you want to go check that out, you can go check out our website. Um, Understand what respect is, because respect is different from different people. Just like I'm from the South. If you don't wave and speak to people when you're walking down the street or passing by in a car, they consider it rude. In the North, don't go speaking away. When I first got to Chicago, y'all, I was like, hey, y'all, they looking at me like I had three heads.
Yeah.
No, you don't address. So you have to understand those cultural differences, those
Yes.
the regional differences. West Coast people are different from East Coast. Northern
Oh,
is different from Southern. All of those things, and it's the same for all of us, because you're a product of your environment, where you're from, that kind of thing. And I'm a y'all you to that. That's just what I do, right? But you have to understand how people take that. Is it okay? Those type of things. It's the
yeah.
same for people that we support. So talk to the person, understand what their terms are for things, what they like, what they consider respect, what they don't consider respect. And I always say too, one of the things I try to practice in my day-to-day work, and I don't hit it every time, but I try to pay attention to that person's energy. And they're like, if a person is kind of down, I'll automatically start cracking jokes or do something to make you laugh, because want to lift your mood. So that's a good helpful tool if you're able to do that. Just kind of read people a little bit to say, what they seem. If I come around John, y'all, and John is low energy, not hype, I'm like, John, you all right? Because John is just like this. He's like, full of energy, great ideas, and all of those things. And if I see something different, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not normally how he acts. So what's wrong? And so it's the
Yeah.
same as DSPs. You know the people that you support. If the
Yep.
person you support is high energy and hyper and love to laugh and have fun, and they're not doing that, what's wrong? How can I help?
Mhm.
What can I do? It's the same.
Mhm. Mhm. Again, this whole conversation we've just had, it boils down to, I guess, the one word, the one R word, and it's respect.
It's respect.
And it's really, and it's once again, can it be that simple? Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
that's what it is. It's
And
respect.
I mean, we probably could have opened up this webinar, just said, be respectful, be nice, bye bye now.
Have a good
And
day.
have a good day. But we get, you know what, Courtney? We get caught up in the noise. We get
Yeah,
caught up
we
in the
do.
noise of this
We
fear,
do. Yeah.
you know.
And at the
And
end
what,
of the day, we're all people. See, that's the piece. At the
yeah,
end of the day, we're all people. And we have feelings, we have good days, we have bad days. And so it's just tuning into that, being aware, being attentive,
yep,
listening. And if you don't know something, don't pretend that you do, or you're the authority and you got all the answers. If you don't know, you don't know. So what should you do? Go try to figure out what the solution is. What is the answer? And be honest. I don't
mhm,
know, but let's see what we can figure out. I think that's
yeah,
huge.
it's
Just
huge.
because you're a professional doesn't mean you know all the answers, because you don't, and you never will.
Yeah,
So just own it when you don't know, because people are complex.
yeah,
Sometimes you will not know, and that's okay.
Yeah. And, I think we didn't talk about this too much. And again, whole other webinar, this could be a whole other article, is documentation. When we
Oh,
look
don't get
at,
me started on
oh,
documentation. John, I can't handle that today. That's too
I'm
much.
telling you, I know. Because when you look here, oh my God, I'm gonna open up the book a little bit and I'm gonna close it. Um, when you look at some of the records of some of the folks that have been in this system for 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
what has been written about them, the language that has been used, written about them is absolutely criminal.
Mm-hmm.
Criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, I could easily blame and criticize those people 50, 60 years ago that were doing that, but that was the medical model of
Yep.
this
We're
population.
deficit driven. That's how you get your funding.
Boom.
Your funding is tied to your deficits. And so everything is written deficit driven. And let me tell y'all right now,
Yep.
if you wrote a plan on me on all my deficits, don't bring that over here. I don't want to see that. I know what my problems are. I don't need a spotlight on it, right? Yeah. But because the funding is tied to the deficit, that's why everybody's stuck. Yeah, right.
Yep.
Right.
And that language has seeped into, and it's
has.
still a remnant. It's a remnant that comes through. And our job, and if my suggestion in terms of this point here and suggestions, we got to fight that. No.
Yeah, we do. There's a lot of work that needs to happen on that. That's a systemic thing for sure.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot of work that needs to happen because that's tough. Because you're brand new DSP and you're handed an ISP to read for someone or a person-centered plan, and it's all about this person can do blah 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 da, 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 all the deficits, which yes, they exist. We know that. Okay, we're not sugarcoating things. But at the same time, that person has great things about them as well. So how do we talk about what the deficits are and what the supports are needed, but also put in the things that are great? You know what? Yeah, I may not be great at this. I may be horrible at being on time. But when I show up, I show up. I'm going to do a good job, whatever. So putting what it is, what the deficit is, but also talking about what the positive is and not just being heavily deficit driven.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. We got to stop because we'll just talk all day.
Me and John just.
Courtney, we'll talk all day. I want to thank you for this time and for the article you wrote.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, it's been a good conversation. I'm hoping that the folks that joined us got something out of it. If anything, the R word, the respect word.
Respect.
When something sounds bad coming out of your mouth, don't guilt yourself to death. Just change it.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's all you can do.
Learn and do better. That's it. Learn and do better.
That's it. So, got to thank our publisher, our person that ultimately edits this, Angie Nethercott and Chanel Salonia from our friends up in Canada. They're our friends up in Canada. And without Angie and without Chanel, we wouldn't have this monthly international journal. So thank you. We always thank Dave Hingsberger, who was the official founder of the International Journal and a real champion for people with disabilities. Dave Hingsberger, if you don't know who he is, Google Dave Hingsberger and buckle up.
Amazing. He was amazing. Yeah.
Amazing, man. And we want to thank you from the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. Any questions you might have for Courtney, if you want to get access to this particular journal article, it's been put into the chat box. But if for whatever reasons you want to just talk to me, please give me a shout. J. Raffaele at nadsp.org. Until next month, we wish you all well. Once again, Courtney, appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
Our interpreters, ASL interpreters, Michael and Emma, thank you both. I don't know how you followed Courtney and I, but bless your hearts.
I told y'all it was going to be a challenge because we like to talk. But thank you, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having us. We appreciate the partnership. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, everybody. See you next month.